Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Sony FDR-X1000V, priced at $499.99 US. You're looking at Sony's first 4K action cam, capable of recording 4K video at 30p at 100 megabits per second. Of course, you can use lower resolution as well in recording, like any camera pretty much on the market, or camcorder I should say, especially a point of view camera like this. And Sony, I give credit because they have stuck with this. They know that they have the sensors and the technology to deliver something that is a competent competitor to the ever so popular GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition, which is also 4K capable, and that's exactly who they are after with this. So they essentially employ Carl Zeiss optics, a glass lens. You have, of course, also beyond that bit rate I just mentioned, which is the same bit rate that this is filming, the FDR-AX100 I'm filming on right now uses, as well as the brand new that I've been reviewing, AX33, another camcorder that Sony makes that also captures at that same 4K 100 megabit bit rate. The key difference, of course, is that this action cam has a much smaller sensor, a different sensor type, and that makes a big difference in image quality, and that's why you're getting 4K at $499.99. It does come with an underwater enclosure. It does have GPS. Keep in mind, they do also make another enclosure that will go, I believe, almost to 200 feet. This one tops out in the 30s. So this is really just meant, for snorkeling. This is not a scuba diving accessory, for those of you that are curious. Full HD at 120 frames if you want some slow-mo action. You've got it. So that's another nice feature. The most important element, though, is the steady shot, and that is what Sony is so good at doing. Stabilization is one of their areas of expertise beyond just their digital imaging, and you've got that in tow. That's arguably, in my opinion, beyond the Zeiss optics, and of course, the bit rate that you're getting here and the sensor, really one of the most compelling elements of the 4K action cam I'm about to unbox. You can see Sony basically plugging their highlight movie maker as well as live streaming through Ustream. The 170-degree wide-angle lens, a great feature on this. The previous generation had some problems underwater. I think it's been resolved, so that'll be something I'll be testing. 8.8 megapixel still images, for those of you that were wondering. They've also improved the onboard audio. Wind noise reduction supposedly has been improved upon, and of course it is a stereo mic. In terms of what else there is to know, of course, Wi-Fi. I believe the support for SDXC cards only goes up to 64 gigs on this, but until I try my 256 gig card, we won't really know. But that's what Sony is saying. And you can see it's mentioning micro, so that might be why it tops out at 64 gigs. But we'll see in a moment when I get it out of the box. But let me go ahead and open this thing up. And you can see additional accessories. This does come with, I believe, one mount at the very least. And actually, it is designed to be open at the bottom, interestingly enough, despite the seals up at the top. So we'll start off right here. Looks like we've got the battery, which also I want to point out for any Sony user, owner, who has anything in the CyberShot family, you are working with the exact same battery, which in my opinion is a great thing. So the NPB-X1, which is the same battery you'll find in the RX100 series, even the RX1 that I still own and love, same battery. I have a ton of these. That means I'm going to get some good operating time out of this action cam. And you can also buy third-party batteries. Of course, Sony will not recommend that. There's one of the two mounts that Sony supplies, the USB cable right there. That is a standard micro USB cable, nothing special to traditional USB. And then another, this is, I believe, yet another mount. I'm going to open it up right here. Break the seal. And really, this is a market that Sony, I think, had a lot of potential of dominating. But of course, as we know, GoPro made their presence known. And in doing so, they really did establish not only a brand, but a winning brand at that. So we've got our tripod mount right here. And then we have yet another mount. And these are all these mounts, these plastic mounts, like the first and the second that I showed you, rather than the tripod mount, have different curvature essentially to adhere to different surfaces. So whether you're talking about a dashboard, I mean, whatever you want to think of, a helmet, the whole idea here is that the creativity is left up to you. And that is pretty much it. I believe all we've gotten here beyond that is paperwork, which I'm not even going to bother with, warranty, literature that most of you will likely not read. And then last but not least is the camera itself. Now, unfortunately, even though the packaging was easy up until this point, it now becomes slightly difficult. So they actually have a, basically a screw in there to mount it into the packaging, which is nice. I mean, granted, I do think the packaging on here is nice. I didn't mention the GPS earlier, but that's another great feature. Let me go ahead and see what I can do here with this, get this out of the package. But really what it comes down to is that, as I mentioned earlier, Sony had an opportunity to make this product a long time ago. They've been playing catch up. Anyone who has been a fan of or followed their Action Cam line knows that they've improved it over the years. Looks like I'm just going to have to cut it. I thought there might be a cleaner way of doing this. But the reality is that GoPro has dominated. But Sony has been catching up, and I think this is the example where they actually have a chance to go ahead. Now, I've seen samples of this camera in particular compared already to the GoPro, and from what I've seen, they look very good. In fact, the Sony, I think, is better. I also believe the audio quality is superior, and those are really important things when it comes to a point-of-view camera. Also, you can get the optional wristband, which has been out for a while. If you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I'm unscrewing that screw that is bolted the Action Cam into its case. Far from frustration-free packaging you'd get from Amazon, even though I'll be including a link in the description. And it looks like I finally got it. So let's see. There it is. Got to make sure it just doesn't fall off because I have already undone its bolt. But very small, very compact. This is the underwater enclosure that it comes with standard. Some buttons for navigating the on-screen menu. Keep in mind, you don't have a way of actually seeing what you're capturing unless you use your phone, iOS or Android, with Sony's app. That will allow you to have live preview, as well as some control of this bad boy. In addition to that, you can, as I mentioned, pick up the wristwatch they created for preview and recording, which I think is handy. Also, you can control with the wristwatch up to 5 of these simultaneously, which is really impressive. Some may wonder the utility of that. It's called having different angles. And for people that are really into this, well, more is more, frankly, especially if you can control it from one device. But essentially, you can see right here at the bottom is the release for the underwater enclosure that comes included. You've got the tripod mount right there. I'm going to take this out of here. Not a lot else to show. I mean, the record button right there, hold, and that's it. Very small, which is something I think a lot of people look at with the GoPro and they wonder, is this going to be as useful? Because it's a little bit larger. But the reality is, between the battery life, the Zeiss glass, the 4K sensor being one of the best that I have seen. This is the same sensor, to my knowledge, that the latest DJI Phantom drone uses. So if you are thinking about, taking an older Phantom and throwing on a great 4K solution, this is another amazing option when it comes to something like that. So there are really just a whole variety, wide variety of things you can do with this. And the fact that you've got that Zeiss glass 170-degree wide angle paired with, again, solid battery life. I think they were saying it's roughly, I believe, as I'm trying to open this, that was the lock I thought. I think it was, I'm trying to remember if it was an hour you get, as I'm still not seeing the way to open it. Well, that was fairly obvious. So the right side gives you access to micro USB and I believe a multi-port, or no, HDMI, excuse me. So you do have video out as well as micro USB. Fairly obvious since it's right there in English. So HDMI, it's your micro SD card slot, which seems to be covered unless I'm crazy. And then the multi-jack, which is really just a micro USB. And then this should open up the entire assembly, that's what I was looking for, to give us access to everything. So basically the right side door is to give you quick access to the HDMI and multi-port, and then this is the main door that gives you access to everything else. So this is where the battery goes, your micro SD card, which is why things are limited to 64, I will eventually, test that out when a 128 gig card that is capable of proper write speed for this exists. I don't think they're out yet, but I will do my homework as usual. And of course, access to HDMI and the multi-port, but you're going to want to do that from the right side door, not the way I just did. But this is my first time handling this, so keep that in mind. Other than that, tripod mount here, as well as here. You got 2 mounting spots, and this is for when you aren't using the camera, obviously, inside the enclosure. And this is still water resistant, for those of you that are wondering. We also have NFC. After all, Sony has been integrating NFC now into their cameras for a number of years, and doing so successfully, I might add. Anyone that follows my channel already knows how fond I am of what Sony has done with their wireless integration. They've kind of led the way, I would say. Samsung is another good example, but nobody's got the ecosystem that Sony has going right now. And that's part of the prowess they bring to the point of view world that GoPro simply cannot achieve. So while there will be fans of both, and I'm not knocking GoPro in any way, Sony, when it comes to being a DI company, is the king of the hill right now, as far as I'm concerned. So for them to now make an action cam like this, that is affordable, that does give you 100 megabits per second 4K goodness, even though it's 30p, and then allows you to scale it down for those of you that don't care about 4K, a little future-proofing, though I recommend it. There really isn't anything else to look at. In terms of the audio quality, that's another thing I mentioned. I will see how that works out. Down here at the bottom, Sony doesn't stop. You also have access to a line in for audio, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to open it. I believe that's a pry point. I almost took my nail off, but I am fairly certain that that's exactly what it is. In fact, it's showing. You have to remember, all of this is weather sealed, again, to be waterproof. So yeah, it is giving me a hard time, but as I try to pry it open, it is the microphone port. So you do have a line in. Finally, I was able to achieve it without ripping a nail off of my hand. There is a mic line in, so you can even, basically pipe in your own audio if you're unsatisfied with the onboard stereo microphone array that supposedly has been improved. So I think a lot to like at $500, a clear competitor for the GoPro, no question about it. Something that you really couldn't say until Sony finally released this 4K action cam. So there you have it. First look at the FDR-X1000V. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.